Are you good? Okay. Okay, it's 6:30 on April 16th, and we will call the meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We note that the entire board is here, as we think it's the entire board.
Mr. Mark.
And Mr. Brummel is not here, but that might be, we might see him again, and we might not. There's something we're supposed to know? Okay. Okay. He's just not here tonight. Okay. Very good. One member is absent.
He's watching at home.
Okay. Oh, great. All right. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes from March 19th. Anybody have any comments or corrections?
Don't look at me.
The only thing I'm going to comment on is I noticed, and there was some discussion with Mr. Miller and the attorney after the last meeting, that the chair should not be voting. And when I looked up on Robert's Rule of Order, I found au contraire. So could you speak to that? Because I guess it looks like I voted for myself, which was not, I would not have done that, but maybe I did.
That is not been the practice of this board. I know with some boards that is the practice, and that's how they operate, is the chair only votes to break a tie.
Okay.
But that has not been the practice of this board, and it's fine that you vote. It's fine that you make a motion, and
okay.
Fine that you vote on the motion if you choose.
Okay, because I did read a lot of the revised Robert's Rule of Orders and brought copies with me because it says I can do whatever I want. But I would withdraw that if people really have trouble with me voting. I had never considered that.
No. Yeah, no. Okay. Sorry for the misunderstanding.
I will do this properly.
Vote on.
All right. All right. Do we have any other comments or corrections regarding the minutes of March 19th?
I move to accept the minutes.
As written.
As written, yes.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. The motion carries. The minutes are approved as written. Our item number 1 today is LE 19-001, Metro Grove Farm Shop and Equipment Building, L&E, and it looks like Jason is Molly.
Yes, I will attempt to fill in. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Jason Reynolds, current Planning Program Manager with Public Works. And first I'd like to set the foundation. The county attorney has reviewed the public notice and determined that the applicant has met the notice requirements and established jurisdiction for this hearing. And what is before you tonight is an amendment to the Metro Grove Farm, Shop, and Equipment location and extent. And the applicant is Metro Wastewater Reclamation District. They're doing business as Metro Grove Farm. And they're proposing to add 6 grain storage silos, about 52.5 feet tall by 46 feet wide, and a lift tower that would be about 100 foot tall, as well as a loadout tank to serve the existing facility and store grain. These types of facilities are not uncommon with farming activities. The bottom of page 3 of the staff report says they are not common, which is a typo. These types of facilities are not uncommon on farms. And the existing facility has equipment building, a shop that has employees who work on the farm, and this site is a small portion of a much larger farm. The site is about 14.8 acres and is in eastern Arapahoe County, located east of Deer Trail. The district uses its biosolids to fertilize the cultivated land and plans to store grain that they harvest in these grain silos. Staff has reviewed the application and found that it complies with the comprehensive plan as well as the criteria such as they are for location and extents and recommends approval. That concludes the staff presentation unless you have questions. Thank you. And I'll introduce the applicant then.
Okay. If you just state your name and address.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Troy Gutchuk, and I work for Metro Wastewater Reclamation District. And I'm with the engineering department, and I've got a few people with me here tonight I'd like to introduce. Next to me is Kelly Merritt, and she's with our public relations. Back on that side is Elaine Wizard, and she's with our legal counsel. And Patrick Stanley, he is our superintendent for the Metro Grove Farm that Jason mentioned. And who we have over here is Charlie Morris, and he's our design build constructor. So he's with us today to answer any questions. We're all here to answer any of your questions. We'll kind of give you the kind of overview of the L&E document and what we're requesting tonight. So with that, we'll start with our presentation. But I wanted to thank you all for allowing us to present our request for this amendment one to the L&E. Especially wanted to give thanks to Jason and Molly and Terry, who have been very, very good with us to kind of walk us through this process. It's not very often we do this, so thank you for that. So on this first slide, basically it's kind of an overview of information about Metro Wastewater Reclamation District. That's our treatment plant. Our treatment plant is the treatment plant for Front Range. Basically, we carry a lot of wastewater to this location in Commerce City and treat the wastewater from Littleton down here. Comes from all the way up from 144th Street. And DIA also serves our wastewater treatment system. The Metro Grove Farm is also owned. Metro Wastewater Reclamation owns the Metro Grove Farm, and that's totally opposite of what the wastewater treatment facility is, industrial municipal, where the Metro Grove Farm is agricultural, rural, and black and white. So as I was looking at this presentation and thinking about how I want to do it, I thought, well, I'll start with the wastewater treatment plant first and kind of work into the Metro Grove Farm. And then I thought, well, it might be easier to just start at the farm. That's our request today, is for the project we have out there. So a little bit about the Metro Grove Farm. We own 52,000 acres of land out in eastern Arapahoe County. It's a non-irrigated farming facility. As it states there, we have about half of that 52,000 acres is cropland, so we raise wheat on that land. And also it mentions there what we call a crop fallow rotation. So we grow on half of that 28,000, make it a 14,000 acres we grow with the crop on, and we let it set for a year and do the other half, and so forth and so forth, and then a cycle every 2 years. So how does this tie into Metro Wastewater Treatment? So the Metro Grove Farm, when we plant and seed and grow our wheat, obviously you have the soil, and you need to fertilize it. We fertilize it with a byproduct from our wastewater treatment. So when we fertilize out there, it stabilizes the soil. It's a soil replenisher. It's good for the crops. And then when we harvest, we have a harvest season June, July, August every year. So that's when most of the activity is happening at this project site that we're going to show you. Where the fertilizer I'm talking about is, if you see on there on that land applied biosolids for beneficial reuse. So the biosolids is the product we extract from the wastewater treatment in Commerce City. So the wastewater arrives from all over the Front Range to us through our interceptor system, a series of pipelines. And basically the wastewater treatment separates the liquid from the solid. So the solid that settles in the system, after it gets treated, it becomes like kind of a liquidy sludge almost. Percentage of solids is about 5%. So it's pretty fluid. It goes through a further process of digestion at the wastewater treatment plant, where it's heated and kills all the bacteria and the hazardous bugs in the cake itself. They call it cake. So once it heats up at 98 degrees, there's some regulations. All that's regulated by the state. So and then it goes to the next system where it's sent through a dryer system. So then it dries that digestion cake, if you will. It dries it to a 20% solid, meaning it's quite dry. So hence the word cake. If you can imagine a brownie after you cook it, that's the kind of the texture of it. Not that it tastes anything like it. Not that I've tasted it, but no, it's very earthy smelling, and it's full of nutrient, and it makes a wonderful fertilizer. So the benefit to the crops is not the only benefit we have. Obviously, with the wastewater treatment facility, that much biosolid that we produce has to be either distributed somewhere. So this 52,000 acres that we own, or the 28,000 that we grew a crop on, we haul by truck out to that site in near Deer Trail, and it's spread out with a special machine that land applies it. So the land out there is non-irrigated, so semi-arid environment. So we pray for rain every year just to get the plants going, and we pray for rain to stop so we can get our trucks in, So it's quite an operation. So those little bullets on the bottom talk about what is called the metric road cake. That's our trademark. But that's what the fertilizer is. So out on the fields, we grow the wheat. We need a place to store it. So Kelly will go to the next slide. We'll kind of show you where we're at in the county. We're way out east. The quickest route is from Deer Trail. As you shown there's the road 34. That's Jolly Road. And it goes to that little red dot is where our project is. So the shaded area is the entire farm, the Metro Grove farm. And that's the 52,000 acres. We obviously we are spread over 2 counties there, so that's how much land we have up there. So just to break it down a little bit more to the project, we have the project location on the far left. That's the site plan we're working with, and as part of this L&E Amendment 1. The hatched area is the actual new construction we're putting on this little rectangular square site, and that's the 14 acres that Jason was talking about makes that up. The actual construction site is only impacting about, not even an acre, so a little less than an acre. So that's coming from the other map. That's another map of the farm, the Metro Grove farm, out there, and we break it down. It's broken down into 3 sections. Obviously, you can read it, but the Metro Grove farm north, central, and south. The north and the central were one of the original purchases. The south came later. So, and then just to mention, I just wanted to mention the DC sites, and the DC sites are just the way our Patrick and his folks keep track of everything out there. It's such a massive space that we have to land apply periodically to different locations. So these DC sites are made up of roughly how many acres? Is it? Yeah, so they're different sizes, but they're all numbered so they know where they're going and record it and things like that. And their destination code is what it stands for. And those are permitted for biosolids application. So, that's it for that project site. So we'll go into a little more detail in the project itself. So the L&E Amendment 1 document has been preceded by the original location extent document that was developed for this this site in 2001, and it entailed the existing shop and equipment building on that 14-acre spot, and that's because we had built this structure at that time. So that was the original location extent document. From there, we moved to today's project, which is, you can go to the next slide. It's this will actually show the first location extent plan. This was the existing shop equipment building on the left there. And then the other facilities we have is an equipment building back in the back, and those are in the middle. Those are grain seed bins. So when we get ready to plant in the winter, we store our seed in those 4 white bins, and they're available for drilling out in the fields. So that's looking at the north side of that 14 acres, if you will. So on the south side, we have these grain bins that are already existing. As you see, they're constructed in '99, and they allow us capacity to store 150,000 bushels of grain. Very typical grain facility, grain storage facility. So yeah, that makes up the southern. That's on the southern part of that site. So what we're proposing on the new project is some more storage, 150,000 bushels. It's adequate, but we need more space because we have a lot of crop, and we want to protect that. So that's why we opened this project up. So the new facility will be 6 new grain bins, and like I said, they're 50 feet high, 52 feet high. Each will contain 60,000 bushels of storage. The open frame steel tower is basically the 104-foot tower that it's called a bucket lift in the industry, and so the trucks come in, they dump into a pit below, and the bucket lift is just kind of conveyor system that goes up and down. So it has to be raised up high enough to get all the grains distributed to each bin. The loadout tank, so once in the bin and stored and dried and ready to be hauled off, we have the 5,000 bushel capacity storage bin for unloading. So it'll drop into trucks that are gonna take it away. 2 receiving pits are basically side by side for convenience of one filling. The other's going through if necessary. Belt conveyance is the method we use to transfer all the grain from the grain bins. Out of the grain bins, it's an auger system. And then everything's going to be powered by generator. So, and these are just cuts off of the location extent Amendment 1 document that we put together for this this application, and that's basically what it's titled. These are cuts of what the new facility will look like. So if you can see on the south elevation, so this little grain bin. So here's two long bed trucks, right? So we're storing our grain here. We have 2 rows of 3, which will give the ability to transfer and dry at different rates and a lot of flexibility. This tower is the bucket lift tower that I talked about. So the pits that the truck's dropping into are below here, and they go up and they'll be lifted into this bucket lift, and they'll drop into a distributor, which then sends them to these conveyor belts on top of these bins. And each one of those will have an opening at the top of the bin, which will distribute into the bin. That's how, basically, the gist of it. Pretty easy. Once inside, then we dry it, and to get it out of there, like I say, there's a auger inside that pulls it out, and it'll distribute it onto a belt, which then takes it back out to that bin that stands up here. So, let's see if I can get that. Oop, there. So here's some renderings of the new facility. So the grain bins over here are the existing ones are right there. Our buildings aren't shown, but if this picture was extended, they'd be here and here. So this square area here would be the 14 acres we're working on. Like I say, this takes about a half acre or so for this facility. So we have a scale here. So when we're in harvest, we're nonstop. So grain comes in, gets unloaded, more come in. I mean, they're in the fields and bringing trucks in for basically 2 months straight in June, July. So this is a big racetrack in here if you guys want some entertainment. And that's about the new facility overview there. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about the agricultural surroundings. Now, I know Arapahoe has their comprehensive plan, and I read through some of that stuff, and I thought it was very good. It's beautiful out there. I can contest. I'm out there quite often, and I see it, and it's just a nice environment. So what we're putting in, it fits right into it, and it's on our site, and you can look to any direction. You might see a farm over here, a farm over here. So it's very sparse in other buildings, other neighbors, but like I say, it has that agricultural goal that Arapahoe County has, and it's a good facility on our site. That much land. It's hilly. There's lots of roads. It takes a long time to get from one part of the farm to the other, but that's our job at Metro Wastewater and Metro Grove Farm. Patrick operates the fleet of haulers and trucks and for the biosolids, so they take it to those fields, those DC sites, and that's where that biosolid gets put into a terrigator. We call it a terrigator, which is a large piece of equipment that has throwers on the side, so it spreads it out. I don't know how wide it goes, Patrick. 60 to 80 feet. So we have to do that continually throughout the year because the wastewater doesn't stop. So it's always coming. I took a few pictures to show approaches to our site. So this one is coming from the east. Let's go from the west, from the mountains. You come into deer trails back here. You go on Jolly Road here, and you can see it's paved up to our site. Here's our site. Here's our buildings. Here's our grain bin existing. If you go up to this hill up here, you're looking down this way, and you can see the same facilities there. But we kind of are in a gully. But this being in the central farm, Metro Grove Central, we have North Central and South. It's ideal for what we need to do. So it's central to all our harvesting. So we have trucks, the quickest distance from the fields to this point. So that's why we selected this when we started the biosolids and then the crops and stuff out there. So the next slide has, I wanted to show you this because, as part of this process, we reached out to the neighbors, and Charlie did a lot of that because he's doing the project himself. So he reached out to the neighbors in nearby areas, and just thought this was a good way to show, distance between and, our facility, our new facility. Everything's over a mile, almost a mile. Very quiet out there. I imagine it gets a little noisy during harvest and dusty, right? It's a little dusty, but trucks are in and out, and that's for our short harvest season. But and then this over here is that one down there is just a close-up of the whole site. There's again the existing grain bins. Our new ones will be here, and these are the buildings. So Hope you can read all that. I thought this was an interesting picture because if you go on Google site and pull up this map, you'll see these strips here on East Arapahoe County, and that's the crop rotation I was talking about every 2 years. So correct me, Patrick, but the tan ones would be the ones in fallow that are being held. I think the opposite. Just the opposite. So the greener or the darker ones are in fallow till the next year. So maybe the brown ones are those that have crops planted on them. So and that's a good way to track the amount of harvest that we have to do. It's the easiest way we figured out to do. So yeah. And then more about the surroundings. I pulled a few pictures out. One was out of my car, so the blurry one was out of my car. So I apologize for being blurry. But I don't know if any of you recognize that's Bennett, Colorado, from Highway I-70. And I believe this site is a Carville Facility. And you talk about rural and agricultural. This is what you see, and I think it's got its own appreciation for it. You come to buyers, and then get closer to Aurora, you start seeing city stuff. So it's all to me, it's nice. It's beautiful out there. So anyway, we're trying to keep in the same area, same look as what you see out there. So basically that's it. If you guys have any questions whatsoever on any of this, please, we'll open it up. But kind of the summary, we wanted to talk about. We own the land out there. A lot of people don't know how much we have. We have to have it for the wastewater treatment process. It's all connected. It provides us our method of removing the byproducts that come out of the wastewater that we receive. The Biosolids Management Program, that's an extensive plan of how we want to manage that biosolids from when it comes into our wastewater treatment plant, the multitude of steps to get out to the fields. That's our management plan, and it's pretty in depth. We have a lot of folks that handle it very well. Other features out there at the farm, we have the harvest, we have the crops, we have pasture available, grazing maintenance, other operations going out there, and then why we're here today is we're requesting your approval for this facility to be constructed. So, and the amendment to the L&E document, which we have gone through the whole process. So, I think we're good there. So, if there are any questions, please. Yes.
I'm just curious, who are your customers for the wheat?
Who are our customers? Who are our customers?
We primarily work through Carville and buyers.
Yeah.
And they market the wheat for us.
Great, thank you. So you lease your land for farming then, is that correct?
No, we farm everything.
Okay,
we hire cutters to come in and do it, and
then the revenue that the Metro wastewater treatment gets from that goes to offset some of your costs, I imagine.
Yeah, that's all part of the plan, is to offset any kind of cost it takes for the trucking. We have 20 trucks. We have 2 hauls a day per truck. We have all the employee drivers. We have all the staff that Patrick handles. So it's for the district. It's paying that service to manage our biosolids.
So what percentage would you say is revenue offsetting what the Metro District residents pay?
I'm not sure what the question is on that. So
because I mean you're selling the wheat, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're growing.
Right.
So that's being used for your operations. You turn that back into your operations. And then that keeps a certain constant in effect for the fees that you're charging the residents, right? I mean, you're getting tax dollars.
Yeah. I mean, our revenues do come from the bill, the wastewater the water bills. But I really am not knowledgeable at what that percentage might be.
Could you come forward, please, and state your
Sorry.
address?
Thank you.
Good question, Jamie. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, good evening. So as far as
Please state your name.
Patrick Stanley. Again, good evening. So as far as the revenue that comes from that biosolids or from the grain that we harvest, there's really no, what would we say, like a windfall with that. The amount of cost that we put out to be able to haul the biosolids and apply it and all that, the money that comes out of the grain is kind of a byproduct or maybe extreme small amount that comes out of that to offset that cost. We never really make any money off of that whole program. It's a small amount of offset. So if you look at what it cost us to run the trucks and move everything and to apply it, that cost is here. The cost or the revenue that comes from the grain is very low in comparison. So there's not a whole lot of dollar amount that comes off of it. It does offset though.
Right. I mean, and that's the point. I mean, I know you're not making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you're pocketing it as.
No.
But the operation is such that even if it's slightly above break even, right, it's keeping the fees that for the people who are paying Metro District fees in that district at a certain level. So they're not seeing great spikes in the cost. Although of course with your cost, the trucking and everything else, fuel, everything else, that has to offset.
Well, I think I know what you're talking about. So yeah, it's helping balance that spike in the cost. Okay, now exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I didn't really expect a financial report, but I was curious because obviously it generates revenue. So I was curious about,
it does
what that was and how it offsets almost the entire cost of you being able to process the wastewater treatment byproducts of that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
I'd like to follow on that. So, are you able to take care of all the wastewater product, or have you ever, you've even named the product Metro Cake? Do you sell that? Do other people buy that?
We do. So there's a percentage of what we spread on the farm and in Deer Trail, and a percentage of what we do for private farmers. So there is that product, we do sell it to the local farmers, and then they pay us so much per acre and so much for us to haul it out there to them, and that all is a part of that same revenue piece of it. So if you look at where the farm is and what we do for the private farmers, we're probably looking at 60% of our output is going to private farmers, and roughly about 40% is going to our farm. Sometimes it's 70-30, but up in that area somewhere.
This is interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
How many people do you employ?
To do that particular piece of it?
Yeah.
Our whole department has 72 people. About 24 of those people work the interceptors of bringing in product to the plant that's not associated with the Metro Farm or that biosolids product. It's input. And then the remainder of that group is all associated with collecting the product from the plant, transporting it, applying it, farming it, that whole support element for
So do you
them.
have people live on site year round?
No, ma'am. Mm-mm.
It's just a farm.
It's just a farm. It's a facility that we go to every day and work that location.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. Hey, so how many trucks are you running then during that July or June, July time?
The June, July time that
I mean, like how many? You talk about a racetrack, so how many laps are we making during that time?
Well,
Hour
roughly.
period.
Well, there's two different processes.
Right.
So, of what we transport from the plant to apply, that is a constant that's always there. When it comes to harvesting, we contract that out to custom harvesters, and they bring their truck drivers, and they're roughly about 10 of them, and they'll go through the combines and load up those trucks, take them over to our facility, and either we're going to store it or we're going to haul it to Cargill, because we do some futures with them also. But we're roughly talking about 10 trucks that are going in and out of there, maybe about 5 trips a day, 6 trips a day. Yeah.
So then this is just all additional storage for what you're already currently producing, or are you expecting to get higher yields here, so you need more storage out of this LNE plant?
So what we normally get, well, right now we have capability to store 150 bushels of wheat. Average, or what we've been seeing in the last few years, is we're averaging between, let's say, 300 and 400 bushels. So what we're trying to do as far as building this is giving us the ability to store it for ourselves instead of hauling it to Cargill, paying a stipend to be able to haul it and for them to store it until we can market it. So.
Do you have the same people buying your wheat all the time?
Yes.
Your regular?
And it'd be Cargill. And Cargill markets it to whoever's going to be the people that are going to buy it from them.
Okay. Any additional questions? Mr. Miller, are you done?
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we will open the public hearing. I was told there hadn't been anybody who had signed in, but it doesn't mean you can't come forward. Anybody? And then we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for consideration. Mrs. Laxis.
Madam Chair, I'd like
Thank
to
you.
make a motion. In the case of LE 19-001, Metro Grove Farm Shop and Equipment Building Amendment Number 1, location and extent, I have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the hearing, and hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to condition 1.
Do we have a second for the motion?
I second that motion, Madam Chair.
Very good. We have a second for the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
That was informative.
Are there any announcements? None? Okay. Meeting is adjourned.